Good evening, my friends. Today I want to share something that's profoundly simple, yet life-changing if you truly understand it. Never react when someone hurts you. I'm not suggesting that we suppress our emotions or deny the pain, but rather that we recognize the deeper truth behind what happens when someone causes us pain. You see, most people go through life reacting to circumstances, to situations, to the actions of others. It's an automatic response driven by the ego, the part of us that thrives on control and fear. But reacting, especially when we're hurt, keeps us in a place of weakness. We give away our power to the very thing that has wounded us. Now think about that for a moment. Why would you hand over your peace of mind to someone who hurt you? When you react, you're not only affirming their power over you, but you're also tethering yourself to the negative energy they brought into your life. There is another way to live, a higher way. Instead of reacting, we can choose to respond with love, or sometimes with silence. This doesn't mean that we allow ourselves to be mistreated. It means that we recognize the truth. How others treat you is a reflection of them, not of you. When someone hurts you, it often comes from their own pain, their own limitations. And if we react, we're simply getting entangled in their chaos. But if we choose to pause, to breathe, to observe rather than react, we stay aligned with our higher self. In that stillness, we find wisdom. We realize that we don't have to absorb the negative energy thrown our way. Instead, we can rise above it. There's a great freedom in this. You don't have to allow the actions or words of others to dictate your emotional state. Your inner peace is not something that anyone else can take from you unless you allow them to. So the next time someone says or does something that hurts you, stop. Take a moment to remember that you are not required to react. Feel the emotion, acknowledge the pain, but don't be consumed by it. Let it pass through you and release it. When you stay centered in yourself, you remain in control of your peace, your power. This is not about ignoring injustice or tolerating harm. It's about staying true to who you are. Responding rather than reacting allows you to make choices from a place of strength rather than weakness. Remember, the most powerful response is often no reaction at all. When you refuse to react, you're sending a message to the world and to yourself that you are in charge of your emotional life, and nothing can shake that. So today I encourage you to let go of the need to react when someone hurts you. Hold on to your peace. Because in the end, how you respond to life is always your choice. Choose love, choose peace, choose to stay grounded in your truth. When we talk about power, we often think of external control, authority over situations, influence over people, or the ability to shape outcomes in our lives. But there's a deeper, more personal form of power that resides within each of us. This power is not about controlling the external world, it's about mastering our inner world. It's the ability to maintain our sense of peace, clarity, and purpose regardless of what happens around us. Yet, so many of us give this power away without even realizing it, especially when we react to others who hurt us. Imagine for a moment that someone says something hurtful to you. Maybe it's a harsh criticism, a sharp insult, or a passive-aggressive remark. The words sting, and almost instantly you feel your body respond. Your heart races, your mind begins to swirl with thoughts of retaliation, defense, or self-justification. In that moment, something profound happens. You shift from being in control of your internal state to being controlled by the words or actions of someone else. Without even noticing, you've handed over your power. You've allowed another person's behavior to dictate your emotions and reactions. This is what it means to give away your power. It's not just about losing control over your emotions, but also about allowing the actions of others to influence the way you see yourself and the world. When someone hurts us, we often react in a way that is tied to our ego, the part of us that is concerned with self-preservation, with being right, with winning. The ego convinces us that we must respond, that we must defend ourselves, that we must strike back. But what the ego doesn't tell us is that every time we react, we are stepping out of alignment with our higher self, with the part of us that knows that true power doesn't come from retaliation or control, but from peace and understanding. Reactions are instinctual. They happen in the moment, often without thought. They are fueled by emotion, anger, fear, hurt, frustration. But these reactions are also temporary. The initial surge of satisfaction we might feel when we snap back at someone or defend ourselves fades quickly, and we are left with the residue of that encounter. Often reacting to someone who hurts us leaves us feeling drained, agitated, or even ashamed. We replay the moment in our minds, thinking of what we could have said differently. Or we dwell on the fact that we allowed ourselves to be pulled into a situation that doesn't reflect who we truly are. When we react, we are operating from a place of defensiveness, which means we are perceiving ourselves as being attacked. But what if, instead of seeing ourselves as victims of someone else's words or actions, we saw ourselves as sovereign beings fully in control of our inner world? What if we understood that no matter what anyone says or does, we have the choice to maintain our inner calm, our sense of self, and our emotional stability? This is the essence of true power, the power that comes from within. The moment we react, we lose sight of this power. We become entangled in the energy of the other person, allowing their actions to dictate our response. But the truth is, how someone treats us is a reflection of them, not of us. People often hurt others from a place of their own pain. Their words or actions are a projection of their inner turmoil, insecurities, or unresolved issues. When we react to their hurtful behavior, we are essentially accepting their energy and making it our own. We take on their pain, their negativity, and allow it to affect our emotional state. It's important to understand that no one can take away your peace unless you allow them to. The moment you react, you give them permission to disrupt your inner harmony. You hand over the reins of your emotional well-being to someone else. This is why reacting, especially in moments of hurt, is so damaging, not because of what the other person has done, but because of what we do to ourselves in response. We abandon our own sense of peace, our own emotional clarity, in favor of engaging in a battle that we don't need to fight. Think about the people who have hurt you in the past. Maybe it was a family member, a friend, a colleague, or even a stranger. In the moments when they said or did something hurtful, you likely felt an immediate urge to respond, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong. But what would have happened if you didn't react? What if, instead of lashing out or getting upset, you simply observed the situation for what it was? What if you recognized that their hurtful behavior had nothing to do with you and everything to do with them? By choosing not to react, you would have maintained your power, your peace, and your emotional freedom. When we react, we become prisoners of the situation. We allow ourselves to be pulled into a cycle of negativity where one reaction leads to another, and soon the entire encounter becomes a whirlwind of hurt and pain. But when we choose not to react, we break the cycle. We refuse to be drawn into someone else's emotional storm. Instead, we remain centered, grounded in our own truth, and free from the need to defend or prove ourselves. Choosing not to react doesn't mean that we ignore or suppress our emotions. It doesn't mean that we allow others to walk all over us or that we pretend we're not affected by their behavior. What it means is that we acknowledge our feelings. We feel the hurt, the anger, the frustration, but we don't let those feelings control us. We don't allow them to dictate our actions or reactions. Instead, we take a step back, we breathe, and we choose how we want to respond. We choose to respond from a place of strength, of understanding, of compassion. This is where true power lies, in the ability to choose your response rather than reacting automatically. When you respond rather than react, you are in control. You are in control. You are no longer a victim of your emotions or the behavior of others. You are the master of your own emotional landscape. You decide how you want to feel, how you want to think, and how you want to act. No one else has that power unless you give it to them. When someone hurts you, they are often acting from a place of unconsciousness. They are caught up in their own pain, their own fears, and they lash out because they don't know any other way to cope. But when you react, you meet them at their level of unconsciousness. You get pulled into their story, their drama, and you forget that you have the power to rise above it. By choosing not to react, you stay awake, conscious, and connected to your higher self. You remain aligned with your true nature, which is one of peace, love, and clarity. It's also important to recognize that reacting doesn't change the other person's behavior. In fact, it often escalates the situation. When we react, we feed the negativity, and the other person responds with more of the same. It becomes a cycle of reaction and counter-reaction, with neither party feeling heard, understood, or respected. But when you don't react, you create space for a different kind of interaction. You break the cycle of negativity and you open the door for a more conscious, respectful dialogue. By choosing not to react, you are also modeling a new way of being for others. You are showing them that it's possible to navigate hurtful situations with grace, with strength, and with clarity. You become a beacon of light in a world that often feels dark and reactive. And in doing so, you not only maintain your own power, but you also inspire others to do the same. There is immense power in non-reaction. It's the power of choice, the power of self-mastery, the power of staying true to yourself no matter what happens around you. When you refuse to react, you are affirming that your peace, your emotional well-being, and your sense of self are not dependent on the actions or words of others. You are declaring to the world and to yourself that you are in control of your inner world. And that is the greatest power of all. It's easy to fall into the trap of taking things personally. When someone criticizes us, when they're rude or dismissive, or when they hurt us with their actions or words, our first instinct is often to internalize it. We begin to wonder what we did wrong or why they're treating us that way. But what if, instead of seeing ourselves as the cause of someone else's behavior, we recognize that their actions are a reflection of who they are, not who we are? This simple shift in perspective can change everything. When we realize that others' actions reflect them, not us, we free ourselves from the burden of carrying their negativity, judgments, or mistreatment. We begin to see their behavior for what it truly is, a reflection of their own inner world. It's about their thoughts, emotions, experiences, and insecurities, not ours. This understanding can bring an enormous sense of relief and empowerment because we no longer have to take responsibility for how others choose to behave. Imagine a scenario where someone you care about, maybe a close friend or family member, suddenly becomes distant or critical. You might feel confused, hurt, or even betrayed. It's natural to question yourself in these situations. Did I do something wrong? Why are they acting this way? But when we step back and observe their behavior without attaching it to ourselves, we can see that their actions are often rooted in their own struggles, their own inner conflicts, or unresolved issues. Everyone carries their own emotional baggage. Whether it's past trauma, unhealed wounds, insecurities, or unmet needs, these experiences shape the way people see the world and how they interact with others. When someone lashes out at you or treats you poorly, it's usually because they are projecting their own pain onto you. Their actions are a manifestation of what's happening inside them. In those moments, they are acting out of their own limitations, not because of something you've done. This is not to say that we should excuse harmful behavior or allow ourselves to be mistreated. It's about recognizing that while we can't control how others behave, we can control how we interpret and respond to their actions. When we realize that their behavior is not about us, we stop taking it personally. We stop carrying the emotional weight of their actions and instead see them as an expression of their own inner struggles. Think about it. How many times have you been upset or frustrated, and in a moment of weakness or stress, you snapped at someone who didn't deserve it? Maybe you were having a bad day dealing with personal issues, or just feeling overwhelmed. In that moment, your reaction wasn't really about the other person, it was about you. You were projecting your own frustration or pain onto them. The same is true when others treat us poorly. Often their actions have little to do with us and everything to do with what's happening inside them. When we internalize someone else's behavior, we allow their emotional state to affect our own. We take on their negativity, their frustration, or their anger as if it were ours to carry. But this only leads to suffering. We begin to doubt ourselves, question our worth, and feel responsible for something that has nothing to do with us. This is why understanding that others' actions reflect them, not us, is so crucial. It liberates us from unnecessary emotional baggage. Let's consider the example of someone who is consistently critical. They may criticize everything you do, find fault in your choices, or belittle your achievements. It's easy to take this kind of behavior personally, to feel as though you're not good enough or that you're constantly falling short. But what's really going on here? Why is this person so focused on finding faults in others? More often than not, chronic criticism is a reflection of deep-seated insecurity or dissatisfaction within the criticizer. They may feel inadequate in some aspect of their own life, and by tearing others down, they temporarily elevate themselves. It's a way of deflecting attention from their own shortcomings by projecting them onto someone else. When we understand this, we can begin to see that their criticism is not an accurate reflection of us or our abilities. It's a reflection of their own unhappiness or frustration. This doesn't mean that their words don't hurt, but it does mean that we don't have to internalize their judgment. We can recognize that their actions come from a place of pain or insecurity, and we don't have to let it define how we see ourselves. Another common scenario is when someone acts out of jealousy. Jealousy is often masked as resentment or hostility. When someone is envious of your success, your happiness, or your achievements, they may try to undermine you or belittle what you've accomplished. At first glance, it may seem like they genuinely dislike you or that they're trying to bring you down. But when we look deeper, we can see that their actions are a reflection of their own feelings of inadequacy. They feel threatened by what you have because it highlights something they feel they lack. Instead of celebrating your success, they respond with negativity because your achievements remind them of their own perceived shortcomings. In moments like these, it's easy to get caught up in their negativity. You might start to question yourself, wondering if you really deserve your success, or you might feel guilty for your achievements. But when you remember that their actions are a reflection of them, not you, you can stand firm in your truth. Their jealousy doesn't diminish your worth or your accomplishments. It simply highlights their own insecurities, and that's not something you need to take on. This understanding can also be applied to people who gossip or spread rumors. When someone talks behind your back, it's tempting to feel hurt or betrayed. You might wonder why they're saying those things or if others will believe them. But again, their actions are not about you. People gossip for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're bored, maybe they're trying to fit in, or maybe they're trying to fit in, or maybe they're trying to deflect attention from their own lives. Whatever the reason, their choice to gossip says more about them than it does about you. It speaks to their need for validation, their insecurities, or their desire to feel superior in some way. The content of their gossip is irrelevant. What matters is that their behavior is a reflection of their inner world, not a reflection of your character. When we stop taking things personally, we reclaim our power. We stop allowing others' actions to dictate our emotional state or sense of self-worth. We realize that we are not responsible for how others choose to behave, and we don't have to carry the weight of their emotions. This doesn't mean that we become indifferent or that we stop caring about how others treat us. It simply means that we stop letting their actions define us. It's important to recognize that everyone is on their own journey, dealing with their own challenges, fears, and insecurities. People act out of their own emotional reality, which may be very different from yours. When someone hurts you, dismisses you, or mistreats you, it's not necessarily because you've done something wrong. More often than not, it's because they are struggling with something within themselves and they don't know how to cope with it in a healthy way. Their behavior is a reflection of where they are on their journey, not a reflection of your worth. This realization can also help us cultivate compassion. When we understand that others are acting from a place of pain, insecurity, or fear, we can approach them with empathy rather than resentment. This doesn't mean we condone their behavior or allow it to continue, but it does mean that we can respond from a place of understanding rather than reaction. We can set boundaries to protect ourselves while still recognizing that their actions are not about us. In the end, knowing that others' actions reflect them, not you, is a form of emotional freedom. It allows you to navigate life with a sense of peace and clarity, knowing that your worth is not determined by how others treat you. Their actions are a reflection of their own inner world, and you are not responsible for carrying the weight of their emotional baggage. You can observe their behavior, recognize it for what it is, and choose not to internalize it. This doesn't mean that we won't feel hurt or disappointed at times, but it does mean that we can move through those emotions without letting them define us. In our fast-paced world, it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of events, emotions, and reactions. We live in a time where everything demands instant responses, whether it's a notification on your phone, an unexpected comment from a colleague, or a challenging situation that pushes your buttons. We've grown accustomed to reacting quickly, often without thinking. Our emotional responses become automatic, a knee-jerk reaction to whatever is happening in the moment. But there's a profound difference between reacting and responding. And understanding this distinction can transform how we navigate life. Reacting is impulsive. It happens in a split second, driven by our immediate emotions, often without any conscious thought behind it. When something triggers us, whether it's anger, frustration, fear, or hurt, we react. The words spill out of our mouths, our actions follow instinctively, and before we know it, we've said or done something that we may later regret. Reacting feels satisfying in the moment because it's a release of pent-up energy, a way to assert ourselves or protect our ego. But more often than not, it leads to outcomes that don't serve our higher self. Think about the times you've reacted in anger. Maybe someone said something that felt insulting or dismissive, and before you could even process it, you lashed out. In the heat of the moment, your words were sharp, cutting, and aimed to wound. But once the anger subsided, you may have realized that your reaction escalated the situation, creating more tension, misunderstanding, or pain than there was initially. This is the nature of reactions. They often come from a place of defensiveness, where the ego feels attacked and in turn lashes out to defend itself. But what if, in that moment of provocation, you paused? What if, instead of immediately reacting, you took a breath, observed your emotions, and gave yourself a moment to process what was happening? This is where responding comes in. Responding is intentional. It's the act of choosing how to engage with a situation rather than letting your emotions dictate your behavior. When you respond, you take a step back from the immediacy of the moment and give yourself the space to consider your options. You're no longer a slave to your emotions. Instead, you become a conscious participant in your own actions. Pausing before responding allows you to access a higher level of awareness. It gives you the opportunity to ask yourself important questions. What am I feeling right now? Why is this situation triggering me? Is my initial reaction going to help or harm the situation? By taking a moment to reflect, you gain clarity. You might realize that the anger you feel isn't really about the other person, but rather about something unresolved within yourself. Or you might see that your initial reaction, if acted upon, would only escalate the conflict rather than resolve it. This simple act of pausing creates a gap between stimulus and response, and in that gap lies your power. In that space, you regain control over your emotions and your actions. You are no longer reacting on autopilot, driven by unconscious habits or emotional triggers. Instead, you are making a deliberate choice about how to engage with the situation. This is a form of emotional mastery, and it's one of the most powerful tools you can cultivate in your personal and professional life. When you respond rather than react, you are engaging from a place of calm and clarity. You are no longer defending your ego or trying to protect yourself from perceived threats. Instead, you are acting from a place of inner strength and confidence. You are choosing how to handle the situation in a way that aligns with your values and your higher self. Responding allows you to see the bigger picture, to consider the long-term consequences of your actions, and to approach challenges with wisdom and compassion. In relationships, the difference between reacting and responding can be profound. When we react to our loved ones, we often say things in the heat of the moment that we don't truly mean. A minor disagreement can quickly spiral into a major argument simply because we let our emotions take control. But when we pause and choose to respond instead, we create space for understanding and connection. We listen more carefully, speak more thoughtfully, and approach the conversation with the intention of resolving rather than escalating the conflict. Pausing before responding is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending you're not affected by what's happening. It's about acknowledging your emotions without letting them dictate your behavior. Emotions are natural, and it's important to feel them fully. Anger, frustration, sadness, these are all valid responses to challenging situations. But just because you feel something strongly doesn't mean you have to act on it immediately. By pausing, you honor your emotions while still maintaining control over how you choose to express them. This approach can also be incredibly effective in the workplace. In professional settings, reacting impulsively can lead to misunderstandings, damaged relationships, and poor decision-making. Whether it's responding to criticism from a boss, handling a difficult client, or navigating office politics, pausing before reacting gives you the space to assess the situation more objectively. Instead of firing off an angry email or saying something you'll regret in a meeting, you can take the time to formulate a thoughtful, measured response that reflects your professionalism and emotional intelligence. In high-stress situations, our natural inclination is to react. Stress activates the fight or flight response in our brain, triggering a flood of emotions that can cloud our judgment. But even in moments of stress, the power to pause and respond is always available to us. It requires practice and self-awareness, but over time it becomes a habit. The more you practice pausing before responding, the more you strengthen your ability to remain calm and composed in the face of challenges. One of the key benefits of responding rather than reacting is that it fosters healthier relationships. When you respond, you are communicating from a place of mutual respect and understanding. You're not trying to win an argument or prove a point. Instead, you're focused on finding common ground and resolving the issue at hand. This approach builds trust and strengthens connections, whether in personal relationships, friendships, or professional interactions. People appreciate when they feel heard and respected, and responding rather than reacting shows that you are genuinely engaged in the conversation. Another significant advantage of responding is that it reduces regret. How many times have you reacted impulsively only to regret your words or actions later? When we act out of anger or frustration, we often create more problems than we solve. We might hurt someone we care about, damage a professional relationship, or make a decision we later wish we could take back. But when we pause and respond thoughtfully, we minimize the likelihood of saying or doing something we'll regret. We give ourselves the time to think through our actions and choose a course that aligns with our values and long-term goals. Responding rather than reacting also helps us cultivate inner peace. When we react impulsively, we often feel out of control, as though we're at the mercy of our emotions. This can lead to a sense of agitation, restlessness, or even guilt after the fact. But when we respond, we remain grounded in our own sense of self. We act from a place of intention rather than letting our emotions control us. This creates a sense of inner calm and stability even in the midst of difficult situations. We realize that we don't have to be tossed around by the waves of emotion. We can remain steady and centered, no matter what's happening around us. Responding also opens the door to greater self-awareness. Every time you pause before reacting, you have an opportunity to learn more about yourself. You become more attuned to your emotional triggers, your habitual responses, and the patterns that drive your behavior. Over time, this self-awareness allows you to break free from unconscious habits and make more conscious choices in how you engage with the world. You start to notice when certain situations or people trigger you, and you can proactively choose a different way of responding. This level of self-awareness is key to personal growth and emotional maturity. Ultimately, responding rather than reacting is about reclaiming your power. When you react impulsively, you give away your power to the situation or the person who triggered you. But when you pause and respond, you take back control. You decide how you want to show up in the world, how you want to handle challenges, and how you want to communicate with others. This is a form of self-mastery that allows you to navigate life's ups and downs with grace, resilience, and confidence. By cultivating the habit of pausing before reacting, you are making a commitment to live more consciously. You're choosing to be the creator of your own experience rather than a passive participant in the drama of life. You're choosing to act from a place of intention rather than being driven by the whims of your emotions. This doesn't mean that you'll never feel angry, frustrated, or hurt again. Those emotions are part of the human experience. But it does mean that you'll be able to navigate those emotions with greater wisdom and self-control. In every situation, you have a choice. You can react impulsively, letting your emotions take the lead, or you can pause, take a breath, and choose to respond with clarity and intention. This choice is always available to you, no matter how challenging the situation may be. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes, until responding rather than reacting becomes your default way of being. And when that happens, you'll find that you're able to navigate life's challenges with greater ease, resilience, and emotional freedom. Inner peace is a deeply personal experience, one that exists independently of external circumstances, other people's opinions, or the chaos of the world around you. It is not something that can be granted by someone else, nor is it something that can be taken away. It resides within you, a wellspring of calm and stillness that remains untouched by the storms of life if you choose to access it. Your inner peace is yours alone, and understanding this truth is the foundation of living a life grounded in serenity, no matter what challenges you face. From a young age, we are often taught to look outside of ourselves for validation and happiness. We are told that if we achieve certain milestones, whether it's success in our career, the approval of others, or the accumulation of material possessions, we will find peace and contentment. But this pursuit often leaves us feeling empty or restless because we are seeking peace in places it cannot be found. The truth is that inner peace is not a destination, but a state of being. It is something that exists within you at all times, waiting to be uncovered. This realization is empowering. It means that no matter what happens in your external world, you have the ability to maintain your peace. You are not dependent on others to provide it for you, nor do you need everything to be perfect in order to feel peaceful. In fact, some of the most peaceful people are those who have faced great adversity and learned to cultivate inner peace in the midst of life's challenges. They have discovered that true peace is not about avoiding difficulties, but about finding stillness within yourself, even when everything around you is in turmoil. One of the greatest obstacles to inner peace is the mistaken belief that it can be found outside of yourself. We often place conditions on our peace, telling ourselves that we will feel peaceful when we get the job we want, when our relationships are harmonious, when we have enough money, when we achieve our goals. But when we attach our peace to external conditions, we make it fragile. It becomes something that can be easily disrupted by a change in circumstances or by someone else's actions. In this state, we are constantly at the mercy of the world around us, always chasing peace but never fully grasping it. The key to inner peace is recognizing that it is an internal experience, something that you create and nurture within yourself. It is not contingent on what is happening outside of you. This means that even in the midst of conflict, disappointment, or uncertainty, you can still access a place of peace within yourself. This is not always easy, especially when life feels overwhelming, but it is possible. It requires a shift in perspective, a willingness to turn inward and cultivate a deeper connection with your own inner being. When you understand that your inner peace is yours alone, you also realize that no one else has the power to take it away from you. Other people may say or do things that trigger anger, frustration, or sadness within you, but those emotions are yours to manage. Your reaction to external events is within your control. While you cannot control what others do or say, you can always choose how you respond. You can choose to protect your peace, to not let others' negativity infiltrate your sense of calm. This is a profound shift. as it places the responsibility for your peace firmly in your own hands. Think about the times when you've allowed someone else's behavior to disturb your peace. Perhaps someone said something hurtful or acted in a way that was inconsiderate or unkind. In that moment, it's easy to feel like your peace has been taken from you, that you are a victim of someone else's actions. But what if instead of reacting, you reminded yourself that your peace is yours alone? What if you recognized that their behavior is a reflection of them, not you, and that you have the power to remain peaceful despite their actions? This doesn't mean that you become passive or indifferent to what's happening around you. It doesn't mean that you tolerate mistreatment or ignore your emotions. What it means is that you develop the ability to remain centered, even in difficult situations. You acknowledge your emotions without letting them take control. You respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. You choose to maintain your inner peace, recognizing that it is your greatest asset, and that protecting it is more important than winning an argument or proving a point. Inner peace also comes from letting go of the need for control. Much of our stress and anxiety comes from trying to control things that are beyond our influence. We want life to unfold in a certain way, and when it doesn't, we become frustrated or anxious. But the reality is that we cannot control everything. And the more we try to, the more we create tension and conflict within ourselves. Inner peace arises when we release the need to control and instead accept life as it is. This doesn't mean that we don't strive for positive change or that we become complacent. It means that we recognize the limits of our control and trust that, whatever happens, we have the inner resources to navigate it. Letting go of control also means letting go of the need for approval from others. So much of our inner turmoil comes from worrying about what others think of us, trying to meet their expectations, or fearing their judgment. But when we rely on others for validation, we give away our power. We make our peace dependent on something that is outside of our control. Inner peace comes from realizing that you don't need anyone else's approval to feel good about yourself. You don't need to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. Your worth and your peace come from within. This understanding allows you to move through life with greater confidence and ease. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself or to seek validation from others. You are secure in who you are. And that security gives you a deep sense of peace. When others criticize or judge you, it doesn't shake your sense of self because you know that their opinions do not define you. You are anchored in your own inner peace, and that is unshakable. Another key to inner peace is cultivating mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, without judgment or attachment. It is about observing your thoughts, emotions, and experiences without becoming entangled in them. When you practice mindfulness, you create a space between yourself and your thoughts or emotions. You become the observer rather than the participant. And this allows you to maintain a sense of calm, even in the midst of strong emotions or challenging situations. Mindfulness helps you recognize that your thoughts and emotions are not permanent. They come and go like clouds passing through the sky. Just because you feel anxious or upset in a given moment doesn't mean you will feel that way forever. By observing your emotions without attaching to them, you allow them to move through you without overwhelming you. This practice of mindfulness helps you stay connected to your inner peace, even when your emotions are intense. In addition to mindfulness, self-compassion is an essential aspect of inner peace. So often we are our own harshest critics. We judge ourselves for not being perfect, for making mistakes, or for not living up to our own expectations. This self-judgment creates inner conflict and robs us of our peace. But when we practice self-compassion, we treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a dear friend. We recognize that we are human, and that being human means being imperfect. We learn to forgive ourselves for our mistakes and to embrace ourselves as we are. Self-compassion also helps us let go of the need for perfection. Perfectionism is a major source of inner turmoil because it sets us up for failure. No one can be perfect, and striving for perfection only leads to frustration and disappointment. When we let go of the need to be perfect, we free ourselves to live more fully and authentically. We accept ourselves, flaws and all, and this acceptance brings a deep sense of peace. Part of cultivating inner peace is also learning to set boundaries. Sometimes protecting your peace means saying no to things that drain your energy or cause you stress. It means being mindful of the people, situations, or activities that disrupt your peace, and taking steps to limit their influence in your life. Setting boundaries is not about shutting people out or avoiding challenges, it's about honoring your own needs and prioritizing your well-being. When you set boundaries, you are making a conscious choice to protect your peace, And that choice is an act of self-love. In life, there will always be challenges, conflicts, and difficulties. There will be moments when things don't go as planned, when others let you down, or when you feel overwhelmed by circumstances beyond your control. But no matter what is happening in your external world, your inner peace is always within your reach. It is a sanctuary that exists within you, a place you can return to whenever you need to. The practice of maintaining inner peace is a lifelong journey. It requires awareness, patience, and dedication. There will be times when it feels difficult to access your peace, especially in the face of intense emotions or stressful situations. But with practice, it becomes easier to return to that place of stillness within yourself. You learn to recognize the triggers that disrupt your peace, and you develop the tools to manage them. Ultimately, your inner peace is your greatest source of strength. It is what allows you to navigate life's challenges with grace, resilience, and wisdom. It is what helps you stay grounded in the face of adversity, and what gives you the clarity to make thoughtful, intentional decisions. When you cultivate inner peace, you are not just creating a refuge for yourself, you are also bringing more peace into the world. Non-reaction is one of the most powerful choices we can make in our daily lives. It is a choice that requires both discipline and self-awareness, as it involves stepping outside of the instinctual urge to respond impulsively to external provocations. When we practice non-reaction, we are choosing not to be swayed by the actions, words, or opinions of others. We are choosing to maintain our center, our inner peace, and our emotional equilibrium regardless of what is happening around us. This choice reflects a deep level of emotional intelligence and personal mastery, and it can transform the way we experience life. In our modern world, we are constantly bombarded with stimuli. Whether it's from social media, our work environment, or our personal relationships, we are regularly confronted with situations that trigger emotional responses. Someone cuts us off in traffic. A colleague makes a snide comment. A loved one disappoints us. Or a news headline stirs up fear and anxiety. In each of these moments, we have a choice. We can react immediately, letting our emotions dictate our actions, or we can pause, reflect, and choose how or if we want to respond. Non-reaction is not about passivity or indifference. It's not about ignoring what's happening or pretending that things don't affect us. Rather, it's about reclaiming our power by refusing to let external circumstances dictate our inner state. When we react impulsively, we are often operating from a place of emotion rather than reason. In the heat of the moment, it's easy to say or do things that we later regret. Anger flares up, we lash out, and before we know it, we've escalated the situation or created unnecessary conflict. Reaction is driven by the need to defend ourselves, to assert our point of view, or to protect our ego. But when we react in this way, we are giving away our power. We are allowing the situation or the other person to control our behavior. In essence, we are letting them dictate how we feel and how we act. Non-reaction, on the other hand, is a conscious choice to remain in control of ourselves, even when we are provoked. It's about recognizing that just because someone says or does something that triggers us, we don't have to respond in kind. We don't have to mirror their behavior, nor do we have to let their negativity infiltrate our own state of being. Non-reaction is a way of saying, I will not allow this situation to pull me out of alignment with my own values, my peace, and my sense of self. This choice becomes particularly powerful when we realize that most of the things we react to are not personal. Often, when someone lashes out at us or behaves in a way that feels hurtful, it has more to do with their own issues, fears, or insecurities than it does with us. Yet, in the moment, it's easy to take things personally. We assume that the other person's behavior is a direct reflection of how they feel about us, and we react accordingly. But when we pause and choose not to react, we create space to see the situation more clearly. We recognize that their actions are a reflection of them, not of us. And in this recognition, we are able to maintain our composure and choose a more thoughtful response or no response at all. Non-reaction also requires us to become more attuned to our own emotional triggers. Every one of us has certain buttons that, when pushed, cause us to react. These triggers are often rooted in past experiences, insecurities, or unresolved emotions. For example, if we have a fear of rejection, we may be quick to react defensively when we perceive that someone is dismissing or criticizing us. If we have unresolved anger from a past relationship, we may find ourselves overreacting to small slights in our current relationships. Non-reaction invites us to become aware of these triggers and to take responsibility for how we respond to them. It challenges us to look within and ask, why does this situation affect me so strongly? What am I really reacting to? In doing so, we can begin to disentangle ourselves from old patterns of reactivity and move toward a place of greater emotional freedom. One of the key benefits of non-reaction is that it allows us to preserve our energy. Reacting to every little annoyance or provocation drains us. It consumes mental and emotional energy that could be better spent on more meaningful pursuits. When we constantly react to what others say or do, we are perpetually in a state of defensiveness or agitation.